Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by CBD7. Is it going to be more of a normal summer for theater and musical events that are back on track? On KVNU's For the People program on Thursday, Wendy Hassan, executive director of the Cache Valley Center for the Arts, said people are starting to put things back on the calendar.
Absolutely. And it's getting to the point again where, like, what we normally think of in Cache Valley as I have to pick between 4 or 5 things because there's 4 or 5 theaters and it gets difficult to choose. And we're starting to see little signs of that coming back, which just feels wonderful.
Hassan said things are starting to percolate already with more events already happening in the Valley.
So even this weekend, you have Matilda in the Ellen Eccles Theater. You've got the Cache Symphony doing a spring concert at Logan High School. You have events happening at the Cache Valley Event Center now. Not all those are arts.
Hassan said that the summer companies are starting to announce their seasons, although some of them might be reduced. And we may not be able to get to where we want to be just yet because of pandemic protocols, but she says she's excited that things are starting to come back. Today, Utah achieved a breakthrough in the battle against COVID-19 with the help of 19,014 new vaccinations in the last 24 hours by seeing to it that more than 1 million Utah residents have been fully vaccinated. Drawing from U.S. Census Bureau numbers, that is 31% of the state's population and 44% of all eligible Utahns 16 and older. Fully vaccinated means having received 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine or both doses of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. The state reported 2.26 million total vaccines have been administered in Utah. The Friday COVID-19 report from the state health department includes 4 more coronavirus deaths since Thursday, leaving the state's list of total COVID deaths in the pandemic at 2,223. Also today, the state reported there were 386 new positive COVID-19 cases detected statewide, 26 of them from northern Utah. Utah's current COVID-19 hospitalizations are now at 137 people, down 5 from Thursday. There are 55 people in intensive care units, which is 5 fewer than Thursday. A total of 16,323 people have been hospitalized during the pandemic. Attorneys for a Utah man who pleaded guilty to murder and the beating death of his wife on an Alaskan cruise say that he had brain abnormalities that a defense expert deemed consistent with injuries caused by playing contact sports. Attorneys for Kenneth Manzanares say that, along with other factors, including an undiagnosed bipolar disorder, resulted in what they called an aberrant episode of violence. Manzanares' attorneys say they plan to seek a 7.5-year prison sentence, while prosecutors say they will recommend a life sentence, calling the killing brutal and violent. Sentencing is set for next month. KVNU weather brought to you by Polylift Concrete Raising and Piering. Their deep foam injection solution is more affordable and takes effect more quickly than competing methods. Visit poly-lift.com to receive your free estimate. That's poly-lift.com. Polylift is locally owned and operated. Becoming mostly cloudy, breezy, rain showers likely, slight chance of thunderstorms this evening. Colder overnight. Some thunderstorms may produce strong gusty winds this evening, overnight low in the mid-30s, and then mostly sunny, much cooler tomorrow, mid-50s. Nice weather on Sunday, but still cool upper 50s for the high. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
People tell us CBD7 has changed their lives and the lives of their pets. Pets also have pain, anxiety, arthritis, old age, and other health issues. Love your furry family members? Don't waste money or settle for ineffective oil-based CBDs that taste terrible. CBD7 has the only clinically proven full-spectrum water-soluble formula with award-winning taste. Want CBD that works? CBD7 supports the best health for all your family members, including pets. Come in, learn about CBD, and try healthy, natural, safe CBD7 for free.
As spring arrives, you may notice that your concrete has settled or shifted. Polylift Concrete Raising and Piering provides the best concrete fixing solutions in the market, and they'll get to the bottom of the issue guaranteed. Their deep foam injection solution is more affordable and takes effect more quickly than competing methods as it stabilizes your concrete to ensure it doesn't resettle. Visit poly-lift.com to receive your free estimate. That's poly-lift.com. Polylift is locally owned and operated.
The bugs love the good weather. I'm guessing you have a bunch of those creepy crawlers waiting patiently to come into your cozy home. Let Logan Extermination take care of those unwanted pests with a monthly exterior spray. Now through October, they'll spray your home's exterior for only $50 per month. That's a savings of $15 each month. Call Logan Extermination before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450. Logan Extermination is a great place to work, and they're hiring. Call today for more information.
Pristine wilderness can still be found in the West, where creeks run freely and historic apple trees still bear fruit. Maple Creek Ranch features breathtaking canyon views and opportunities for real estate development. 2.5-acre lots are now available with adjacent wilderness areas that provide endless riding and recreational possibilities. So find your piece of paradise just 35 minutes from Logan at Maple Creek Ranch. Schedule your appointment online at maplecreekranch.net.
Mother's Day is coming, and the pressure's mounting. What are you going to get her?
I can't buy her clothes because I never get the right size. I know. I'll get her candy.
So, you bought me candy. Well, isn't that special?
Visit Anderson's Seed and Garden in Logan. Give a gift that will beautify her yard and bring her joy for years to come. Annuals, pots, hanging baskets, fruits and vegetables, or trees. They have it all. Anderson's Seed and Garden, 69 West Center in Logan.
It's alive! It's alive! There will be no stars to hold us in the sky. There will be no bonds to break, no bitter tears to cry. There will be no stars to hold us in the sky.
Welcome to Hour 2 of today's show. It is Friday, May 7th. The second hour of the show, of course, is The Movie Show with Andy Morgan of Andy at themovies.com. He's joining us in just a bit, stepped out of the studio, and, well, hopefully we'll be back soon. He's listening right now. That's why it's a funny joke. Yes, Andy Morgan of Andy at themovies.com with us. And as I said, there are actually movies in theaters. Here in Cache Valley, though, you might be a little disappointed with the new movie choices. We'll talk about that later on. And the best news, I think, about movies in general right now and what's coming out, what's hitting theaters, is that you're starting to see it pick up a little bit. You're starting to see some rumblings in the film industry as well about maybe staying firm on some of these release dates that have been announced in June and July, whereas a month ago there was still a lot of chatter about maybe bumping it back yet again. Some of these movies have been delayed over a year. Others have not. Here in Cache Valley, you can still see, and if you haven't yet, there's two ways you can see this. You can actually pay Disney that extra $20 on top of what you're paying for Disney Plus and see Raya and the Last Dragon. It's actually pretty great. Kind of lengthy, though, for an animated film. But yeah, it's got some good stuff in it. You can, of course, still see Godzilla vs. Kong. If you were listening to the movie show last week, though, you might want to make the trek to that Legacy Crossing area and see it in IMAX. Andy didn't like it when he watched it on the tiny tablet screen via HBO Max, but saw it a second time in IMAX there at Legacy Crossing and really enjoyed it. So as he said, he wasn't sure if it was the IMAX that made the difference or if he was just not a fan, in a grumpy mood that first night that he saw it. You'll have to decide for yourself. Audiences are loving it, and this is the closest. The reason I mentioned that one first, this is the closest you will come to a summer movie blockbuster right now in theaters. That's why I say listeners might be a little disappointed at their choices. This is usually the time of year when you're starting to get those those early teasers of summer blockbusters. You're getting you're getting what the studios consider the B list of summer blockbusters. I've always thought that a lot of what we get in the late spring, heading into summer, is great. And there have been some surprise hits, of course. Some of the biggest money makers of the year in the past have been those spring movies that they're putting out ahead of summer movie season just because they didn't think it would do as well and didn't want to waste a spot in actual summer movie season. So this is usually when we're seeing that type of thing, not so much this year. And again, if you watch, some of the chatter online, some of the press releases that are put out by studios and distribution companies on Twitter and Facebook pages. Most of them using Instagram now, although doing so obnoxiously. I don't recommend you follow them there. You can see it's starting to wind back up a little bit. There seems to be, at least for now, growing confidence in putting these movies out in the earlier rather than latter part of summer. And so it's possible we'll actually see a pretty decent, though truncated, summer movie season. We had a great question from a listener last week, right after the show wrapped. A listener emailed in when we were talking about the same type of thing. And a listener wanted to know if studios were going to be holding back even longer if they had, and this is a question better for you to answer, Mr. Morgan, than me, but listener wanted to know if studios, considering that the summer movie season will still probably be truncated and a bit muted this year compared to previous years, are there any studios or anything you've heard about studios saying, you know what, we're sitting on this one another full year?
No, I'm telling you right now, I don't mean to sound like redacted. But movies are like, we're back in business. Now, what that translates to, I don't know. But I'm telling you, there have been some movies that have. Let me set up a couple things really quick. This will actually help us better. One, I do want to talk this show about a new movie that's out streaming, animated movie on Netflix that you can watch this weekend.
Benny Loves You?
No.
It's not that one?
No.
I just watched the trailer for that one, and I'm curious.
We'll also talk about, again, we last week we went over some of the May movies, and we'll remind everybody what's coming out. The other thing that I want to talk about is there's a couple big trailers for movies that have been postponed that came out this week. Marvel released their Phase 4 trailer, and we can talk about this more in depth later, later in the show. But because I also want to kind of do like a little grab bag. I like to do that every once in a while, where I basically say, Jason,
here's a bunch of random.
You ask me anything you want.
AMA.
Andy will answer anything.
But that trailer, that's why I was talking about.
It was emotional.
Kind of feeling that summer movie season excitement for the first time in over a year.
Yeah.
That trailer was it. I watched that and I thought, oh, wow, this is a thing. I remember this. Somebody
either got a raise for that trailer or somebody got a pat on the back. It was probably more like a pat on the back because it was a marketing person.
I thought it was cool that the trailer, I mean, obviously it's promoting the film, but it recognized the last year, kind of in a way.
It basically said, okay, look, here are, we had you here. We had Avengers Endgame, Avengers, Infinity War.
By the way, you can catch up on all this timeline at Disney Plus.
Disney Plus,
they have
right?
Some great little 4 and 8 minute.
They do.
Like if you forgot,
and they also have some
at.
Curated playlists of like, do you want to watch these all in the order that they came out from a time perspective?
I've been doing this.
Yeah, it's kind of
fun. Which is weird because you actually have to. So you start with Captain America and then you jump to Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
those are actually the first two movies.
You go from the World War II to the 80s. Yeah. But here's what's fun, right? They laid out for Marvel fans and movie fans, because that's one thing that Marvel's been able to do. They've laid this out for the next 3 to 4 years. They've laid out, here's our Phase 4, right? It starts with Black Widow in July.
Yeah.
And what they said, and this is what I thought was great, is they took the words from Stan Lee, not Stanley, but Stanley.
Stanley. I know you have to intentionally pause on
Stan Lee.
Stanley who?
And and his words just, I'll be honest with you, you and I have been talking for, over the past year about what it means to go to the theater, and his words nailed it. It was like, look over, that's your brother, that's your sister, that's your, everybody's, you're there in the theater, you're a community, you're together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, and we're going to be back. And that's what I thought was great. Is so they set this up, is Marvel's basically like, look, we're going back to the movies, and then 2-3 days later, A Quiet Place Part 2 trailer comes out.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
first time I've actually been excited. So
for Ferris Bueller fans, I was pumping out diamonds watching that trailer.
Well, a little thing to add to this. So when the trailer, because remember, trailers were running for A Quiet Place 2 last spring.
Yeah,
and
they were like, we'll be back.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, okay, you'll have to wait a couple months. And then they're like, oh, maybe it's a year. But I wasn't excited about the film when I saw the trailers last year. I thought, oh, do we really need to do this?
Now
the
you
first
are.
One? But now I watched that trailer when it came out Wednesday, and I'm excited now.
You bring up a really good point.
But is that just the pandemic?
No, you bring up a great point. I've actually thought about that. I call it.
Am I just?
Is it pandemic?
Anything will do now?
Yeah, right. Is it pandemic hangover? Right? Because even last year, right? Somebody that's an idiot, but somebody's going to look back. And they'll be like, man, did you see the 2020 box office? They're like, Bad Boys for Life. What was the deal? What was the deal with that?
Biggest moneymaker of the entire year.
And what was the deal with Trolls World Tour?
Martin
Or
Lawrence
whatever.
didn't even want to do it.
Yeah.
It was the biggest moneymaker of the year.
You'll get something like that. But, when you
Trolls
look
World Tour.
these 2 years will be
Onward.
Yeah.
That won an Oscar?
That was nominated? I got to be honest. I watched that and I was like, well, that won't get nominated. Then they were like, we only had 7 cartoons.
That was one of those situations where a studio was like, okay, we're not going to say we're glad the pandemic's happening, but at least we had an excuse to shuffle this one off.
And that's what you have the pandemic box office 2020, and then you're going to have this sort of pandemic carryover.
I went to that Apartment movie with James Franco's little brother.
Oh,
I went to that.
I can't believe you just called that the Apartment movie.
What was the guy? I can't remember the name. The Tenant, because there was Tenant and then The Tenant.
No, it was like The Rental or something like that.
Yeah, the Apartment movie.
The Condo.
The Condo with James Franco's little brother.
Yeah, I know. I know, that's weird. And then to watch old episodes of Community and be like, oh, okay. This is like...
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
What's Allison Brie?
Yeah.
Anyhow, going to your point, though, 2021, I would suspect, again, unless, and I'm not trying to jinx anything, so I'm knocking on wood in the station, but unless something goes completely south between now and the end of the year, I just can't see things locking up and us not going into the theater. Now, here's the question is, this is even a bigger question, and this is... I'd be interested. Here's what I'd like to know.
I feel like I'm going to go see everything.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm not.
Right.
I feel like if there's something playing and unless it's
Remember
horrible,
when you couldn't?
Yeah.
Remember when you there wasn't enough tickets?
When MoviePass went under?
Well, you know what I mean? You remember when you would have you'd be like, oh, I want to go see this on opening night. You'd be like, it's sold out.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's 2 questions I'd like to hear this from listeners, truly. One is, it's a twofold question. My first question is did you go to the theater over the past year during the pandemic? If you didn't, why? And I mean that.
You could also do
that's
it if
not
you
a
did
setup.
why, because the movies weren't necessarily a draw.
It would be. That's not a setup question, because I want to know where there were safety protocols put in place, right? Just like you'd have it at a grocery store. Masks were required, all those type of things. So my question would be, why, if you didn't go, why didn't you go? Number 2, and this is the follow-up, is now that, things are better, do you plan to go back? Those are my questions, because I know my answer. I mean, I've been going to the theater for the past year. The first few months I didn't, when Megaplex was like, yeah, we're not open, right?
Yeah, you didn't really have an option.
Now, I wasn't.
But they opened in June. June, was it?
Yeah, it was June
of last year.
Obviously, they showed a lot of old movies, so I know a lot of people that might be the answer. Is like, well, look, man, I didn't want to go see Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I know that didn't entice me in, but I did. I will say I did plan when Dune was originally coming in November of last fall. I did plan to go see it.
Well, oh yeah.
That was the first one I was going to go see.
Here's my other thing is
for the year.
I like one of the. I think I really hesitate to say this. A couple years ago, I went and saw the Utah Theater on May 4th. The old classic Utah Theater.
They did the Star Wars.
Did the Empire Strikes Back, which is my favorite Star Wars movie. And I was like, oh, man, yeah. And then I got in there, and it was the special edition. And I was like, you know what? I've been hornswangled. This is some... No. I was like, I'm not... You know what? I'm never coming back.
I swear, if Disney's ever in trouble... Like if they're ever like, wow, that 18th Goofy movie
all
went
they
south.
gotta do is just
we
be
lost
like,
all our money.
Here's the trilogy.
Yeah, that's all they have to do is put out a Blu-ray streaming, put it in a giant box set that costs $200. I don't care. But if you put those original, un-George Lucas
on streaming,
do
you mean Disney Plus
be
people?
A very popular,
I cannot believe
because you can't see them anywhere right now unless you own an old set of the DVDs, or I've actually got some VHS.
A little bird told me that my name was being tossed around on the radio on May the 4th.
It was.
And
I don't remember how.
I am proud of you for saying it.
We were talking about Star Wars.
Yeah, it was that you refused to say May the 4th. You were going to make it through without saying it.
Yeah, I don't know why. Even
and then
as
you
a
said
huge
it.
Star Wars fan, it drives me nuts. Yeah, and then I went ahead and said it.
But then the next day,
May
did
the
you
4th be
celebrate?
with you.
Did you celebrate Revenge of the 5th?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing. Wow.
I could go all day. Hey, let me ask you, did you do anything special for May the 4th? You dress up like Chewbacca?
I actually, this is sad. I didn't do a single Star Wars related thing until the end of the day, and so I felt like I had to do something. So I ended up watching the entire first episode, which is all that's out right now. But I started just because it was the 4th, May 4th. I started the Bad Batch. On Disney Plus. This is
animated.
So for those not familiar with it, there was a long-running animated series that originally started on the Cartoon Network. Now Disney owns it, and they finished it, the final season. It was called The Clone Wars. And now this is a spin-off of The Clone Wars. The timeline
it's like the
is...
little...
Yeah, this is... In fact, there's a reference to that... one of the few cool parts in the prequels when Obi-Wan fights General Grievous. Is that the third?
Hello there.
Is that the third movie? Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's set right then because they reference the very first of this hour-plus long first episode of The Bad Batch. They reference Obi-Wan going to go do that. Anyway, I watched that. I really liked it. I recommend it for Star Wars fans. Even if you've never been a fan, I wasn't really a huge Clone Wars animated series fan.
Well, it was kind of
But
dorky
this was
at first.
really cool.
When Dave Filoni took over.
Yeah.
Even though I hate his cowboy hat. That's not saying I hate all cowboy hats.
Just his.
But,
he's one of those big floppy, I don't wear a cowboy hat unless my photo's being taken.
There's some people that wear cowboy hats and you're like, that's part of your DNA.
Yeah.
And then there's other people that wear cowboy hats.
Oh, I saw a camera. Put my cowboy hat on.
It's like Bono and his sunglasses.
Oh.
Some people wear sunglasses to protect their eyes.
He's like the ultimate story of a person who could have been so cool for his entire life, and he just went too far.
Somebody's out there and they're like, he wears those for eye protection. Maybe he does.
No.
Maybe he does. It's like Michael Jackson, he wore sunglasses during the day.
Isn't it Elton John that wore fake sunglasses primarily, tinted glasses at least for so long they actually changed his vision, and so then he needed them?
That I do not know.
That's a little Elton John trivia I remember.
That I do not know. I did not do anything for May the 4th. I never do. I think it's cool. I love that people get excited about it. Yeah, this is my level of Star Wars fanship. I'll watch any Star Wars movie. I will watch any of them. I will love the ones that I love. I will hate the ones that I hate.
Yeah.
And hate is I'm being a little dramatic. I don't hate any Star Wars movies.
I kind of hate Attack of the Clones.
That's the one that probably comes close for me.
That's the hardest one for me to rewatch.
But I do, I have Star Wars apparel, like T-shirts and a hoodie and stuff? Of course. Do I have some memorabilia? Yes. Have I ever dressed up as a Star Wars character at a at a fan place? No. Do I own a Chewbacca bathrobe? Yes.
I own a Chewbacca onesie.
Yeah.
But it was a gift.
Right.
I didn't seek it out.
Do I
for an adult?
When I went to Star Wars Land and Disneyland, did I build a lightsaber? You bet. Did I ride the Millennium Falcon over and over and over again? Yes.
Yes, I did.
Would I
Did he push some children out of the way in order to do so? Yes, he did.
Do I have lightsaber battles in my backyard? No.
Well,
no. Do I? Yeah.
You
no.
never once when you were a kid got one of those cardboard tubes that like fabric comes rolled on, or
not when I was a kid. The thing I try to tell the kids.
You just mean as an adult.
Yeah, no. The things I try to tell. But here's the other thing. I'm not going to judge you for your fanship. If that's you, awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be you.
Oh, I respect it. Going to
mean?
Comic-Con and seeing the work some people put into some of the costumes and the one of my favorites.
However you want it.
This guy, I talked to him afterwards. I got a chance to interview him, but he's a welder, and he built. So here's a testament to the level of my Star Wars nerddom. I know what it's called. He built an AT-ST.
Oh,
which is the two-legged
chicken walker.
AT-AT. Yeah, the chicken walker they call it. He built one of those. It was a combination of metal and cardboard skin, but a metal frame underneath. And
so cool.
He was Chewbacca's head poking out the top in the cockpit. And he just walk around in that thing. It was probably
that's actually pretty
close
cool.
to about 20 feet high. It was. I mean, he barely cleared some of the.
That's
and
pretty
that
cool.
to me is so cool. I would never do it, myself, but it's so cool.
It's something to think about, really, on that same front. Not to get off on this tangent, but when we talk about like why, I was actually thinking about this on May the 4th because I was asking myself, I was like, what powers a franchise like Star Wars, especially where, let's be frank, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that are new Star Wars fans that go back and watch the original trilogy, and they're like, New Hope is boring. Return of the Jedi is, some very blasphemous Star Wars things. But when the prequels came out, we all went crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Even after
if George Lucas came out tomorrow and said, I'm making prequels of the prequels,
we'd be like,
we'd line up.
Yeah,
just to
right,
see,
exactly. No, I get it. And it's the same thing with the sequel trilogy. Force Awakens comes out, and we're like, oh my gosh, Star Wars is back. Last Jedi came out, and we were like, that was cool. Whatever the third one is, because I can't even remember, because it was my least favorite of the sequel trilogy.
Rise of Skywalker. It holds up, though. I watched that again recently.
It's not bad, but it does feel. It's funny
it
that
wanders
in
a
a
little.
year that had 3 major franchises ending, Marvel, and I don't mean ending forever, but Marvel, Game of Thrones, and Star Wars, that really most people only felt like one of those stuck the landing.
You just made me think something, because I'm one of the most...
Was that a bad word?
No, it was a good word. I'm one of the most tolerant people that I ever discuss these movies with when it comes to all of those finales.
Yeah.
And here, you just made me realize why, or how to express why. And it's that, I mean, think about what they had to wrap up.
Oh, yeah.
So I've cut some slack, because that final Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, it does wander a little bit. It gets kind of a little too many places there in the last third.
For me, it's
But they had to. Same with Endgame.
For me, it was the
Endgame wandered a bit.
But I think
it had to.
Well, I love Game of Thrones.
How mad people would have been if they would just been like, "Oh, Captain America's not coming back. We're not going to show you why, but say goodbye to him."
Well, Endgame felt like...
And same with Game of Thrones. They had to wrap up so many storylines.
Yeah, and Endgame felt more like... it felt more like Return of the King in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like they said goodbye, and then they were like, but not quite yet. But not quite yet.
That was the movie with 8 endings.
But not quite yet, yeah.
And the music knew it, too. Have you ever watched Return of the King and paid attention to the score?
Yeah.
Like, the music thinks it's ending, too.
Well, it's like
oh,
when
here
he's
we go,
like...
finale. Oh, just kidding.
When he's like, hey, Captain America, what are you doing over here, Grandpa? And then it's all plays that, the 50s music, and they pan into the house
and you think,
so slow, and you're like... Come on, and then you're like, well, that must be it, and then like, oh, let's have a funeral.
Yeah, 20,
and then
25 more minutes.
Yeah, and it's fine. I've watched it. It's great.
I defend it because I think they had to, and I think you saw that with the final Star Wars as well, because they had to.
My only issue with the final Star Wars is that I I think they could have done better.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. It's better than the prequels by
I understand
far.
people who were disappointed that they were just it's the
bringing back
Emperor again.
bringing back Han and Luke and Leia. Those are main trilogy characters, and it's a trilogy sequel.
Yeah.
It's we're talking, 7, 8, 9, right?
Wrapping up a whole franchise.
Right, yeah. And so I had no problem with that. And they weren't even main characters because, their time had passed to some degree.
Yeah. Could have done with a little more R2-D2.
But I do not like, unless there's something, actually, no, I don't like it. I don't like when they bring back dead people.
Yeah.
So bringing back the Emperor for me,
I thought that was a little bit of a cop out.
I got to be honest. When everyone was going bananas over the first trailer at the end, when he's like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," and Luke's like, no one's ever really gone. Like, part of me went, okay, it's it's the new guys. It's not George.
Yeah.
Maybe they can do something cool with this.
That's what I thought, because
then they didn't. It was like animatronic Emperor hanging around like on a little coat rack.
Well, setting up Snoke the way they did as a mystery, and then there's no mystery. He's just I thought that part was
what probably would have been cool in my opinion. And again, if I say this removed from it now, is I think I would have liked to have The Last Jedi be the last movie.
That actually might not have been a bad place for it to end.
Because I would have been okay with it ending with Rey being like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
And the Rebel Alliance being like, well, we're still fighting the First Order, but and then what does that set up, right? You could have had a whole another sequelogy.
Catch the
anyway, I didn't mean to take us down that road, but
on the other side,
I was thinking a lot about Star Wars this week with and actually I don't even know where we are with State of Star Wars. Maybe we could talk about that later, because I don't know what's coming and what's planned.
Disney does. They put a little bit out.
And I know Disney Plus is like, hey, we're rocking it.
But as far as films go, pretty tight-lipped. Although they did say they were taking about a 4-year hiatus last year or 2 years ago. I think I saw that.
Kathy Kennedy, right, is like, I'm not going to have a job.
I'm tired of this. It's the For the People movie show with Andy at themovies.com, and we'll be back with more after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Authorities say they are trying to determine what prompted a young girl to open fire at a rural eastern Idaho middle school, one of the few school shootings in which the suspect is female. Police say the girl pulled a handgun from her backpack Thursday morning and shot 2 other students and an adult custodian. All 3 victims were shot in the extremities, and none had life-threatening injuries. Jefferson County Sheriff Steve Anderson says the investigation is likely to take a considerable amount of time. Figures compiled by the group The Violence Project show girls and women commit just 2% of both mass shootings and school shootings in the U.S. A 16-year-old Utah boy has been charged as an adult with stabbing a woman to death after she told him to stop using racial slurs. Court documents say Isaac Joseph Vigil was charged Thursday in the death of 34-year-old Melissa Wood in Murray on April 22nd. Vigil was allegedly making racial slurs in a parking lot with a group of other teens when Wood, who was playing with some children nearby, asked him to stop. Prosecutors say he then approached her and stabbed her in the torso. It's not clear if he has an attorney who would comment on his behalf. Attorneys for a Utah man who pleaded guilty to murder in the beating death of his wife on an Alaskan cruise say that he had brain abnormalities that a defense expert deemed consistent with injuries caused by playing contact sports. Attorneys for Kenneth Manzanera says that, along with other factors, including an undiagnosed bipolar disorder, resulted in what they called an aberrant episode of violence. Manzanares' attorneys say they plan to seek a 7.5-year prison sentence, while prosecutors say they will recommend a life sentence, calling the killing brutal and violent. Sentencing is set for next month. KVNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture. They work hard to keep stocked up on what customers want. Sectionals, bedroom sets, chairs, hundreds of chairs in stock. Always a better buy at U&I, 28 West, 1st North. downtown Logan. Rain showers likely tonight. Slight chance of thunderstorms this evening. Some thunderstorms might produce strong gusty winds. Overnight low in the mid-30s. And then fair weather for the weekend, just cooler by about 20 degrees. Mid-50s, mostly sunny on Saturday. Upper 50s on Sunday. Today's high was 77. For the latest news, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
This is Dr. Red, chiropractic physician with Red River Health and Wellness. Are you suffering with fatigue, brain fog, headaches, intestinal issues, weight gain, and you haven't been able to find any answers?
I've constantly been fighting with my weight and thyroid issues for more than 25 years, and none of the doctors in 25 years have ever been able to explain to me what Hashimoto's is, what it means to me, and how to manage it.
Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
Today, my life is like the minute I get out of bed, I hit the ground running. I'm ready to go. I want to see what today is going to bring, what adventures I'm going to have without pain and with all the energy to do everything that I want to do.
Our goal is to teach you and educate you so you know how to manage your condition a lot more effectively and you know what to do and what not to do for the rest of your life. With our satisfaction guarantee, you have nothing to lose.
Call Red River at 855-55-RIVER to schedule an in-depth consultation absolutely free. All appointments can be done remotely by FaceTime, Skype, or phone.
Excited as I am?
By the sounds of it, no.
I love being with people. It's the most incredible thing in the world.
What are you doing? Oh, this is nice.
That world may change and evolve. But the one thing that will never change, we're all part of one big family.
Just a little bit from the Phase 4 official trailer released by Marvel earlier this week. And definitely, as Andy and I have been discussing here on the movie show, it put me in that summer movie season mindset.
Yeah.
For the first time in over a year, and I just realized I'm excited for movies. I want them to be now.
You know,
I can wait a few weeks, but I want them to be now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I legitimately don't. I feel like I just feel like things are back. Again, I know that there's some stuff to say about that. Like, we'll see how the box office does as these movies, and there's still going to be. Netflix is still rolling out a movie every, I think every month or every week. I can't remember what their schedule is.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about one.
If they really cut themselves some slack on a premiere.
Well, and that's
or two.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're doing something every week, so I get it. But there have been a few of them that are like, really?
Yeah, and I think
calling that the big week premiere.
I'm going to guess that HBO Max and Warner Brothers probably, I bet, by midsummer, they're going to be like, why did we do this? Why did we agree to release both at the same time? But again, I don't have a problem watching stuff in my house. Like, I don't know, but there's just something about going into a packed theater with a bunch of excited moviegoers on a summer night. You know what I mean? And you get to watch the trailers, and everybody gets to be excited about movies.
Yeah,
and then you get to watch the movie.
It's that whole experience.
Yeah, and so I'm, me. I have a very strict set of movie etiquette.
Yeah,
and I can go full Karen. All right, that's not true. I'll never Karen you.
You're still probably pretty nice about it as
I'm
you
having
do it,
internal Karen screaming while it's happening.
I would like to speak to a manager.
That's right. That's like literally just drum thumping through my head. But I don't, I wouldn't trade it. You know what I mean? It's just awesome. It's just fun. It's like it's the difference between, probably about 10 years ago when the Jazz were going through their transition between the Darren Williams era and I'll call it the Gordon Hayward era. Before this current group, the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and those guys. When they were kind of in that rough period, people would be like, "Hey, you want to go to a game?" And I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Why would I was like, why am I going to pay, $40-$50 a ticket to sit in the upper bowl and with that, crappy Jumbotron they had back in the day, and when I could watch it in HD on my TV at home. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of, for me, this sounds judgmental and harsh when I say it out loud, but because there was, as you've pointed out, heading into the Oscars, there were some great movies in 2020, but for me, there wasn't anything that got me over that hump of going out to the theater.
Did you
part
see
of it was
Tenet?
a lot of times they weren't here in Logan, and I wasn't going to drive to Salt Lake for the choices I had. And so if it was available online, I saw it online. If it wasn't, I just didn't see it.
Well, and really, with the exception of some independent, it was interesting. Here's an example, actually. This is something we should bring up. So, movies that are opening this weekend in theaters at the Megaplex. There's movies that I don't think Megaplex in a normal year you'd see here. Like, for instance, we talked about The Rental last summer, right? With James Franco's little brother that we don't even know his real name. Those movies, I don't know if that would have come to Cache Valley if you had your full summer slate. So what I mean is that there are movies that I think are coming that have got theater time that probably normally wouldn't have had as much theater time. And Utah was one of the biggest theaters in terms of revenue, I believe, for Hollywood during the pandemic. But so if you look at what's playing right now at the Megaplex in Cache Valley, you've got Godzilla vs. Kong, which has been there for a little while now. You've got your Mission Stories. That's not about stories about homeless people in San Francisco. That is the stories from the LDS mission field. You've got Mortal Kombat. You've got Percy versus Goliath, which I don't even know what that is. Raya and the Last Dragon's playing. There's actually, we should probably talk about this one. I'm going to pause on that one. But there's a Billy Crystal movie called Here Today. It's Billy Crystal and Tiffany Haddish. And I'm telling you right now, that movie would not be playing in Cache Valley if it wasn't that we were still kind of at the tail end, of this pandemic, that we didn't have full movies coming out in force right now. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, I think there's some independent movies that got some traction during 2020. Now, here's the other thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword because those movies probably didn't feel a difference. They probably weren't like, whoa, our box office is nuts. You know what I mean? We just made a lot of money. It's not that because people still weren't going to the theaters. But the fact that they got that screen time that was normally locked in for, whatever, Fast and the Furious, 14 or whatever, that's the case. So anyway,
that makes sense.
There's a horror movie playing in Providence right now. Have you seen this? This trailer creeps me out. It's called Separation.
It looks
legit. I haven't seen it. I might actually have to go see this.
We have to point this out. There's like a whole slew of horror movies all of a sudden out of nowhere.
Well, that doesn't
there's The Initiation, Benny Loves You, which is a murderous puppet, as I understand it from the trailer, and The Separation that you mentioned.
Separation, I feel bad too because it's also it's got 8% on Tomatoes, so
it's not
it
doing
looks
well.
creepy. But man, I don't know. But that's my point. That probably wouldn't see the light of day, in a normal May. I didn't mean that to rhyme either. I wasn't trying to make a poem. There's another movie like Demon Slayer Mugen Train. Like what's that? That wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
I'm just the other movie opening this week is a Jason Statham Guy Ritchie movie. It's called Wrath of Man. And I got to be honest, I did not know based on the trailer and just watching it, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna love this. You know what I mean? Like, I love Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie's great.
The trailer didn't appeal to me.
No, but
what I've read since.
It's really good, though.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Now, this is in Logan, right? You
It's playing
that,
at the
right?
university. It's rated R. It's Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie was probably a bigger name early 2000s.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
He reached his pinnacle. Or I shouldn't say his pinnacle. I think people thought, he's really going to take off because he was hired on to do the Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yeah,
with Robert Downey Jr., which are great, by the way.
I like those a lot.
And then he kind of went off the rails a little bit. He did the King Arthur one, which isn't terrible, but isn't great.
Isn't great.
No, it's not great. You know what
it's
I
not
think?
The worst King Arthur movie that's been done.
No. People are always like, I just think it's the story. Some stories just don't lend themselves well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're cool in some medium, like King Arthur might be cool. But
I thought what
you
he did
never
with-
live above Excalibur. You never get above that.
No, that's and people should recognize that and make something. I've always wondered that with the whole King Arthur thing. The movies the spin-offs that focus on the characters of the King Arthur legends, like Merlin-focused movies, they do really well. But like you said, you can't get above Excalibur. I thought what Ritchie did with The Man from U.N.C.L.E., though, was one of the coolest things.
That movie is so underrated.
Yeah.
It's very
It's
underrated.
a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a pretty obscure old TV show in the first place. I mean, relative to, like Dragnet and some of the more memorable. But I thought that was really cool. And then he just kind of did some weird things.
Yeah, and Jason, one thing I'd like to see, and I saw glimpses of it in Without, I almost said Without Remorse, Wrath of Man, is I'd like to see Jason Statham do something, I'm going to say Oscar-worthy.
Like acting?
I'd like to see him do something.
You want to see him act?
I don't want to see his, his transporter persona.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him. It doesn't mean he has to grow like like long hair or something. Like he can still be himself, but like I'd like to see him be in a genre that he's not normally in. I think he really does have that potential. Like what he does really great is he does comedy. When he was in Spy, and even the Fast and the Furious movies, right? He's really pretty good at like that dry comedy.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him step into something. He's got that Bruce Willis potential where he could be a good, if he just kind of got out of the action genre
It's
a little
funny
bit.
how you see some people go, kind of back and forth, and some shouldn't even try, like some of the 80s action stars, Seagal. He tried to go legit, and he just wasn't good at it. But then there are others that I forget the name of it now. But Vin Diesel, no one knows this, but Vin Diesel was actually his very first film.
Well, his first few years, he wasn't an action star.
Boiler Room.
But then he
that
also
was his
did
real big role, first big role.
There's another one,
and
he
it's
did.
just he plays a creepy Wall Street investor.
Yeah.
He's not a action star. He's good.
It was the XXX and the Chronicles of Riddick stuff that kind of launched him into his action. To your point, Boiler Room, that was a Sundance movie.
Yeah, and he just acts in that. There's it's not an action film.
Well,
it's
even
not,
Private Ryan, he's not really an action star. He's acting.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what put him on the map. The other movie that I can't think of the name of it, but it's a courtroom drama. And he's in that, and he has like thinning hair and stuff. Anyway. I'll look up the movie, but yeah,
I know the most obscure Jason Statham trivia that I know.
What is it?
So there was a band. They were really popular in the 80s. They're still around, but they stopped being popular in the early 90s. An electronic band called Erasure.
Okay.
In mid 90s, sometime they had a single out called "Run to the Sun." And Jason Statham is actually a dancer in that video.
Really?
Yeah, he's painted entirely silver.
So, did you know?
You can Google it.
There's one other thing.
I learned this from IMDb a long time ago, and it just stuck in my head because it seems so,
Well, here's the other
different.
thing. Jason Statham got his start when he was younger. He was actually like a swimmer diver, like an Olympic swimmer and diver. I don't think he ever made the Olympics. He represented the 1990 Commonwealth Games as a diver, In fact, Sylvester Stallone said at one point when they were doing those Expendables movies that he said that we were all wearing heavy boots and gun belts. There was a scene where a truck went into the water, and he's like, we would all been dead if it wasn't for him because he was a diver and he knew what he was doing. So
Really?
he got everybody out.
That's interesting.
Yeah, how about that? But
wow. We got a break.
Yeah, when we come back, I want to tell you about this movie. I know you've seen it, but I want to tell our listeners, Netflix. It's a animated movie called The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's from the studio studio that brought you Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
And it is so good. All right. We'll talk about that. The Mitchells versus the Machines with a giant Furby. I'm already laughing remembering it. We'll talk about that on the other side here on the For the People Movie Show with Andy Morgan of Andy at themovies.com. Back right after this.
This Mother's Day, surprise mom with dinner for two and a piece of jewelry from S.E. Needham Jewelers. Choose from a large selection of pearls, silver, gemstone, and diamond jewelry. Or you may find something special for her in our family jewelry collections. With Mother's Day upon us this Sunday, maybe an S.E. Needham gift card would make a timely gift. With the purchase of $149 or more, you'll receive dinner for two. Come shop today for the people and occasions that matter most. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
Summer is just around the corner. Don't crank up your AC unit before getting it serviced. Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning is the team you should call for quality on-time service. If your system needs replaced, think York. York has the best warranties in the business with affordable financing options. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning at 752-7272 or stop by their showroom west of DI. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
Comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Spring is the season to get outside and do a project or two. A good place to get started is Stevens Forest Products. Pick up bark, mulch, or compost by the bag for $1 or $2 less at Stevens, or buy it in bulk and save even more. Stevens is also your best source for flagstone, perfect for patios and walkways. Choose from 7 colored choices. Pick up a few pieces or take home a pallet. Delivery options are available. Stevens is also home to over 5,000 in-stock railroad ties with prices beginning at $13.99. Stevens Forest Products between Smithfield and Logan at 3277 North Main.
If you are looking to build or remodel, go with a company who works with the top custom builders in northern Utah. Chim Chimney offers an array of units from fireplace extraordinaire, including the highest heat output options if you want significant heating potential. Or you can go with the entry-level Pro Builder series. Whatever model you choose, Chim Chimney will work alongside you from planning to installation to move-in ready. That's Chim Chimney in Logan and Brigham City. We sell, service, and install Lopi. Visit us at chimchimney.com.
Welcome back to the For the People Movie Show with Andy Morgan of Andy at themovies.com. Just about 3 minutes left in the show today. We've been talking about Jason Statham getting his first acting career in an Erasure video in the mid-90s.
Welcome to the Jason Statham Fan Hour.
How Vin Diesel should go back to acting.
Vin Diesel's.
But you actually wanted to talk about a movie that has hit Netflix that deserves your attention.
There's a couple things we briefly mentioned last week. 2 movies that are streaming. One that came out last week on Netflix, The Mitchells versus the Machines. This is fantastic. I mean, if you're looking for a movie where everybody in the family can sit down, you know, from top to bottom, and just watch a movie as a family, this is.
It really does have humor for everybody.
It's so good. You know, this hit me in some areas because, you know, I've got kids that are graduating and heading off on their own, and it's, you know, it's really good. And it's not just the story and the voice talent, it's the way that it's laid out and presented, you know, the animation style, it's really cool. There's some things we're living in right now that I feel like we're living in the golden age of. I feel like we're in the golden age of animation right now, and I also think we're in the golden age of horror movies. So those 2 genres are just knocking it out of the park. But Netflix, PG, great stuff.
Yet again, trying to work Benny Loves You into the show there.
The other one,
this is a horror comedy movie about a toy that gets thrown away and comes back for revenge. Called Benny Loves You, and I can't decide how I feel about it.
That is creepy. You know, the other thing I should also point out is Without Remorse is still streaming on Amazon, and if you're looking for an action movie, that's not a bad pick. It was pretty good. Michael B. Jordan, Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy's not in it.
No.
That's I'm
died.
sorry. Rest his soul.
James Earl Jones isn't either.
No,
he was a staple of those.
He was not
movies for a while.
No, he was not. But anyway,
but worth your time.
Yeah, I check them out. Both those movies.
All right, next week.
Next week will be Grab Bag.
Oh, that's right. You've got a whole slew of movie news. Summer movie season, though, it might happen. That has to be good news for everybody. And stay tuned. You can follow along at andyatthemovies.com.